I never thought 2 crumpled dollar bills could change my life forever. But that's exactly what happened. Imagine buying a house for less than a cup of bad gas station coffee and watching it become the center of a multi-million-dollar war. I didn't set out to pick a fight with an HOA or unravel a fraud scheme, but hey, life's got a twisted sense of humor. Sometimes the punchline is you. Let me back up a sec. The house, if you could call it that, was a pile of weather-beaten planks, half swallowed by weeds in Cedar Hollow, barely standing since 1940, whatever windows busted out porch, sinking like a tired sigh. The listing at the county auction was almost a dare abandoned sold as is, starting bid $2. I figured somebody'd snap it up for the land, but when the auction came, nobody even flinched. I lifted my paddle for fun, more as a joke than anything else, and the clerk, bored to death, banged her gavel, sold for $2. I paid with the wrinkliest bills in my wallet, signed the paperwork, and walked out grinning like a fool who just robbed the system. That house was nothing but a story to tell at bars, until the wildfire hit. The fire came out of nowhere, turning the hills to black scars, swallowing million-dollar homes, and leaving nothing but ghosts and twisted metal behind. But my wooden shack, stubborn as ever it stood, charred but upright, the only survivor on what used to be a row of cabins. Suddenly, my worthless joke was sitting in the heart of a brand new luxury development zone, and let me tell you, that got people's attention real fast. Developers started circling like vultures. One waved $2 million in cash at me. Another tried to sweet-talk me up to $5. Zillow estimated my pile of timber at over $10 million, and I started thinking maybe fate knew something I didn't. But the real trouble didn't arrive until the HOA showed up, complete with fake maps, bogus fines, and a woman who looked like she'd been born with a clipboard attached to her arm. Karen Whitfield, though I didn't know her name, then showed up while I was patching my half-missing roof, dressed like she was heading to a garden party, sunglasses big enough to block out the truth. "You can't do that without approval," she chirped, pointing at my hammer like it was contraband. I just blinked. Approval from who? From Timber. Pines' HOA. She snapped, chin up, all the smugness of someone who'd never been wrong in her life. I nearly fell off the roof laughing. "Lady, I bought this place for $2 at a county auction. It's not in any HOA. She smiled, the kind that's all syrup and no sugar. Actually, it's been annexed as of last May. You're within our boundary now. That stopped me. I'd checked the records. There was no HOA here, ever. But she wasn't bluffing. Next morning, there's a notice stapled to my door. Unauthorized modifications, fined at $2,750. Every day after that, new notices arrived. Wrong roof color, unapproved truck grass, too long, even though the fire left nothing but ash and a few weeds. They weren't trying to fine me, they were papering me into submission, hoping I'd cave and sign my land over to them. But I didn't grow up backing down. 6 months earlier, I'd set up trail cams to keep an eye on things after the fire, and those cameras paid off big time. One night I catch Karen herself creeping along my property line with 2 guys, one jiggling the lock on my shed, another peering through my windows, Karen scribbling in her folder like she's running a census. Meanwhile, I hit the county office, digging through maps and filings until I find the smoking gun. Their so-called annexation was filed weeks past the legal deadline, backdated, signatures forged. It wasn't just Karen being overzealous, it was fraud, plain and simple. Next time Karen showed up, she brought her lawyer, a guy who looked like he practiced legal threats in the mirror every morning. They quoted fake HOA bylaws and claimed my failure to contest their expansion counted as consent. I laughed so hard I almost slipped off the roof. "Next time you step on my land, bring a warrant." They left, but the notices kept coming, bigger fines, certified letters, claiming my deed was invalid, threats of legal action. It was obvious they were trying to steal the land outright. That's when I called in backup, my cousin Paige, a code officer in the next county. Paige took one look at the paperwork and said, "This isn't just sloppy. This is felony territory." Turns out Cedar Hollow had been rezoned as a conservation area in the 90s. My land wasn't just outside their reach, it was legally untouchable. Karen and her crew had broken state law trying to rope me in. But Karen wasn't done. She escalated, plastering neon posters in my yard declaring my house under HOA review, parking her Lexus at the end of my drive just to stare, sending a parade of fake notices. Paige and I started building our case, dragging every fake filing out of the county archives, collecting certified copies, and prepping for battle. The twist. At a town council meeting packed with neighbors and reporters, Paige dropped everything: forged maps, trail cam footage of Karen and her crew trespassing, proof of late filings, and even testimony from Miles Harlan, the HOA's original founder, who revealed Karen was using a version of the charter that was never even legal. The place erupted. The council froze the HOA's authority on the spot, pending a full investigation. But Karen, true to form, doubled down. Within days, I was hit with a cease and desist threats of a $5 million lawsuit, intimidation tactics, black SUVs idling outside my house, survey flags planted on my land by a shady company called Western Terrain Dynamics. That's when it all snapped into focus. This wasn't just about property lines. They were after mineral rights, shale gas, lithium, maybe more. Western Terrain was ready to drill the second Karen's fake annexation went through. Paige brought in the DA. The feds got involved. Auditors uncovered $400,000, $1,000 missing from HOA accounts. Shell companies, bogus invoices, and recordings of Karen openly discussing pressure tactics. Search warrants flew, offices raided, and suddenly the local radio was reading Karen's nasty emails live on air. The HOA's clubhouse looked more like a mafia den than a boardroom. Residents lined up with their own horror stories, phantom fines for dogs they never owned, threats over kiddie pools, non-compliant fences. Turns out Karen had been running a racket for years. When the DA announced racketeering and fraud charges at a press conference, reporters went wild. Arrest warrants for Karen and her board dropped like dominoes. The sheriff's office showed up at dawn, neighbors peeking from behind curtains, as Karen was hauled out in cuffs, pearls, and all. At the sentencing, I stood in court and told my story. It started as a joke, I said, but when greed saw an opportunity, they tried to bury me in fines and threats. They forgot one thing: paper burns and truth doesn't. The judge handed down 12 years in federal prison for Karen. Restitution for every resident extorted. Timber pines dissolved, assets seized, and a permanent ban for everyone involved. I wish I could say it ended there. But a week after sentencing, I found a note under my windshield. Check the well. In the old stone well behind the house, I found a lockbox stuffed with receipts, maps, and an audio file. Karen's voice plotting to use the HOA as cover for illegal drilling, planning to drown him in code violations until he sells. That blew the case wide open. Federal marshals raided Western Terrain. Their CEO resigned in disgrace, and the state passed new laws banning any HOA from annexing land without a 2/3 property owner vote. Cedar Hollow got its freedom and its dignity back. So here's what I learned: $2 a stack of stubbornness, and the truth can topple an empire built on lies. No clipboard, no title, no fake rule book can take what's rightfully yours if you refuse to be bullied. If you're ever staring down a system that feels too big, too rigged, remember this house, remember this fight, and remember greed never dies. It just waits for its next chance. When it comes, be ready. Now, I want to hear your stories. Drop a comment. Tell me if you've tangled with an HOA or if you've ever had to fight for what's yours. Where are you watching from? And what's your take on justice? And hey, subscribe if you want to see just how wild these stories can get. Because around here, the fight for what's right is never really over.